We all want to get sharp, crisp, and just really high quality looking images, but how can we do that? In today's video, I'm going to talk about some techniques that you can use to get the sharpest image possible out of your camera. Now, this is going to be techniques that just apply across the board. They're not specific to a camera, and I don't even want to be specific to a resolution because we all understand that 4K is going to be sharper than 1080p. But how can we make the footage with whatever camera that we have at our disposal look as sharp and as high quality as possible? The number one thing is just going to be light. The more light you have in a shot, the sharper it's going to be because the more detail that the camera can actually see. As you can see right now with this light dialed down, there's not a lot here, and so I have to bring up the exposure in post, and I'm getting a worse looking image overall. Now I've bumped up the light a bunch, and now I've been able to drop my ISO down, and this image should look sharper even than the original shot of this video. Now, obviously, blasting every single image you have with the most light possible is not really the ideal way of doing things because there's balance to the image. There's multiple things that you're exposing for, not just the subject. So blasting a spotlight in your subject's face will give you a sharper image, but it doesn't mean it's going to give you a good looking image. In this setup right now, I want the background to look balanced with me in the foreground. It can be a little bit darker, but I want it to kind of all be in a similar range, and so one isn't like overshadowing the other, because if I have too much light here, then the background's going to be completely dark, and you're not going to be able to see any of that cool, bokeh and get all that depth and that stuff in the background. So by having the light balanced to where there's enough light to make the image look sharp and crisp, but also keep the background decently exposed, I can find this perfect balance where I can get a sharp image and get just a really high quality looking image overall. Another technique is to try and silhouette your main subject. So as we can see here, I'm using color to separate myself from the background. So the blue sky in the background is creating this perfect silhouette around me. This can be achieved, one with color, and then two with lighting, where you can actually put a light behind your subject to kind of give them an edge and give them a silhouette. Another thing you can do is raise your aperture, which will get more of the image in focus and therefore be sharper. However, there is a point to where this does make your image look worse. And I think this is a big stylistic thing. Don't try to get sharp images just through adjusting your aperture. Start with lighting, and really lighting should be like the first thing you do, and then adjust camera settings according to the lighting. Let me show you an example. Okay, so I've changed my f-stop to f5, which in theory should be a sharper, better looking image. But as you can see now, we've lost all of the stuff in the background. It's super dark. You can't really get a lot of detail. Also, there's not as much depth of field. Like, that's no depth of field. Come on, there still is some, but we're losing a lot of it. Now, if I switch it back, you can see now we have a much more balanced and cinematic looking image because we've got nice depth, and the lighting looks a lot more balanced, a lot more even overall. So yes, adjusting the aperture will get you sharper images, but that's not always what you want to do, and you can still get really sharp, really crisp images even when you open that aperture up. Your image will get softer because there's just going to be more depth of field and there's going to be more blur, but that doesn't really take away from the actual sharpness of the image, especially when you're just looking at what's in focus. That stuff is still going to be pretty much the same. Now, one big thing is trying to reduce noise in your image to get a sharper, cleaner looking image. And this just goes back to lighting, which a lot of this video does. When you're trying to film something at night, it can be difficult to get more light in your shot, especially if you're filming in like a natural location and you don't have extra lights on you. But when you are in a situation where you can control the light, it's always better to try and overexpose and then darken in post to get a sharper, less noisy looking image. This is what a lot of movies and TV shows will do. Sometimes they take it a little bit too far and they darken the image too much to the point you can't see anything. But this is a technique that I've used in my work to get cleaner, better looking low light images, especially when I can control the light, because if I add more light during production while we're filming and then bring that down in post, there's going to be less noise because I'm starting with a sharper, brighter looking image to begin with. And remember, all of these decisions have the same goal: tell the story. The lighting, the aperture of your shot, that'll change the depth of field. These things should all just be in service of the story, and I know sometimes it seems like there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, but most of the time it's gonna be obvious what you should do given the context of the story and the emotion that you're trying to convey. But these are just some techniques that you can implement into your footage to get sharper, crisper, higher quality looking shots. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.